over 1000 of a second. As picture becomes too dark. Okay. Okay. Now, why can't I move? Oops. Technical problem. Okay. Sorry, I was talking about this. This is slide 23. Motion blur. Now, motion blur is when you see fast flowing subjects, or when you shake, when you take a picture, this thing happens, what's called motion blur. Now, I'm showing you an example of two types of shutter speeds. Now, the fastest shutter speed is the one on this picture that you see. This is the flowing water, right? It's a fast flowing subject, but the shutter speed, because it moves so fast, it freezes the picture at that second, 1/20,000, 2000 of a second, very small, very fast. So you can see the actual droplet of the water frozen as it is being caught up in the air. So it gives a very artistic kind of view of your picture. The other one is a slower shutter speed, which is showing actual flow of water. It looks like milk flowing down flowing down this drain. So it is an artistic and a dramatic effect with slower shutter speed. So say 1/4 of a second, or quarter second is 0.25 second. So you will have a longer period of time keeping the shutters open, and it gathers more light in and gives a very nice artistic picture. So again, just to give you a summary of shutter speed, on the left-hand side, where fast shutter speed means a quick open and shut of the shutter, you freeze the picture. Slower shutter speed, as on the right, that will actually carry on showing the flow. It makes very blur. Motion is blur. So it's got an artistic effect. So that is the first two, ISO and shutter speed. Next, and the last one on this technical side, is the aperture. Now, the aperture is denoted in a Nikon by this symbol called A. A for Nikon and AV on a dial for Canon. So that's what the aperture is denoted in these two models. It's like your human eye, the aperture in a lens, okay? And if consider and think about the pupil of your eye, and this is the title of today's subject, is eye for an eye, and this is where it comes from, aperture. Aperture is the size of the lens window, that, or the little hole in the lens that allows the light to come in. And it's like the eye in the pupil in your eye. It works like that. So here we have, when there is insufficient light outside, then your pupil enlarges, and likewise, the darker the environment, you need to open up your lens to a wider f-stop. It's measured in f numbers, right? F-stop. So this one is the lens aperture, which shows when it's a lot of light out there and you're trying to reduce the amount of light that comes to the kit, it goes to a small aperture, a small hole like this, and then there's not enough light out there, you will have an aperture size which is wider. So in this case, the F number is actually quite confusing. It's the smaller number, the smaller F number, like F1.4 or F2.8, is actually a big hole in the lens. Whereas this one, in a lighter environment, like in a bright sunny day, then the lens f-stop number is like F11. Actually, it's a bigger number, but the hole is smaller. Or F16, it becomes very small. So I hope you can understand that. The aperture is basically the item on your lens that controls the amount of light that comes through into your camera and hits your sensor at the back. And that is part of which controls the artistic value that we have in when you take photographs. The aperture, apart from controlling how much light comes into the lens to take a picture, also controls, as I mentioned just now, exposure. So on the left-hand side of this picture that you see, you can see the F number when it is when it's smaller, sorry, F 2.8 or 1.4, you get what is called a deep DOF. DOF means depth of field, okay? And then when your F number is F11, F16, F22, or whatever it is, you get, sorry, when your number is F11, 16, or 24, you get a deep depth of field. And when your F number is small, like 1.4, F2.8, you get on the right-hand side of this picture, a shallow depth of field. That's what DOF stands for, okay? So that gives you artistic control over the kind of pictures that you want to take, okay? So here is a picture of a landscape. For this kind of picture, you want to get as much in detail or information into your sensor. So you allow your lens to go to f.111 or 16. So it captures as much details as it possibly can from a distance. Here's some pictures I took in Putrajaya wetlands using F number, F11, F16 number, so that I can try to capture the details of the sun and the light at the back. So as much details as possible. I was not focusing on just like, a small item here. I'm trying to get the landscape picture. So as much details comes into the camera. Now, I'm not going to get too technical about the subject, but sufficient to know that a depth of field in your picture means it takes detail, in detail, all the images in the background of your image. This is obtained by a higher f-stop value like F11 or F16, as you can see on the right. So when you have this kind of number, you can see all the details at the back of your picture. A shallow depth of field is usually obtained at lower f-stop values like F1.4. So like the boy here, you see at F1.4, it's blur at the back, but actually this is what people like to see because it focuses the subject a lot more. Whereas in F16, you are getting too much details. So the picture, the boy's picture becomes, too confusing. So normally when you want to take a portrait kind of picture, try to take a F1.4 or F2.8 so that the blurry effect at the back is there. So you don't get a distracting kind of picture in your image. The other thing is here on when you take photographs indoors, when there's not enough light, you need to have much more light coming into your camera. So normally we need to have a wider aperture f-stop number again. So like we saw just now, it should be f1.4 or f2.8. Whereas outdoor pictures, if you keep the same number f2.8, you get almost a white picture. So you need to move it again back to f11 or smaller size opening in the lens to make it a normal picture. But this is when you compromise in bird shooting from getting a nice blur background in trying to capture all the bird details as they may be far away and you may not be in focus at wider f-stop numbers. So I have to keep very small f-stop numbers, like, the lens has to be in focus. So my numbers are usually f16, f11, that type. Okay, now that is a sheet. This is what I call a cheat sheet, which helps us set the right combination of ISO number, shutter speed, and aperture for whatever kind of photography that you're taking. So this is available also on the internet. It's called cheat sheet for photography, for looking at the kind of relationship between the ISO number, the shutter speed, and the aperture. So we don't have to memorize what I just told you. Okay, so that's the technical bit part. I've now finished off. Now let me teach you a little bit about how to hold the camera. I think this is very important because this is where most of us make mistakes. Now, when you take a photograph, try to put your elbows, tuck your elbows in, providing a brace so that it is very stable, trying to minimize the amount of shake your mobile phone or your camera or your compact camera is going to take. try to keep it very tight and hold the lens underneath, as the picture that you see, this photographer, Chris Bray from Australia. He's a professional photographer. He's showing you exactly how you should hold your camera. Tuck in your elbows, keep it very, very steady. Okay, now here's a picture of another way. This is Alicia, my daughter, who's holding the lens. She's putting it on top of the pillar of this watch tower that we were standing on, and taking photographs so there is no shake, because the lens is very heavy lens. And a friend of mine who comes bird watching with me, he is also showing you how he holds the lens really far, in a right to the edge of the lens, because it's a very long lens, it's very heavy. So he's nicely tucking his hands in and supporting the lens at the far end to keep it steady, so it avoids shaking during the pressing of the camera shutter. Okay, so that's a little bit of the technical about how to hold. Now the other thing is, good photographs are usually, let me just follow that. I think he's already explained that. Okay, composition of pictures are also good for birding as a subject. Okay, so great photos are made, not taken. Okay, so composition is very important. What do I mean by composition? Composition means how we actually frame the picture, or look at the viewfinder of the camera, and what are we actually trying to take the picture about? What kind of story are we trying to tell with this picture that we are taking? So what I've done is to take 10 top tips from Chris Bray here, an Australian geographic photographer. He has given me, he's going to share with us 10 top tips. And please take note, this is very important section of our thing for you when you do your own pictures. The first tip is, try to keep, whenever you see horizontal lines in your picture, try to keep it straight. Don't make it oblique, diagonal, or whatever it is. Lines must be horizontal. If it's horizontal, keep it horizontal. So keep it straight as far as possible. That's the first tip. So you can see this. You can see this little tree fern that, as soon as your eye looks at it, it actually, because the line is in a proper horizontal thing, it becomes a very stunning photograph. Okay, and in this tip tool, you can see a grid in the, it's called breaking up the image into thirds. So the second tip is a rule of thirds. In bird photography, it's important to get the eye or the head and the neck of the bird in focus. So now in this case, you can see this image, the subject that we are trying to take is actually on the grid. So that's called being on the third, all right, third. So try to break up your frame or the picture in thirds in your lens through your viewfinder, sorry, and take the photograph so that it becomes a very interesting picture. So here we have a bird photography that looks very powerful when you break it up and see the little swan or the duck that you see in this lake. The guy is right at the bottom third. And it looks very good sometimes when you have to actually keep the focus on the bird. The other thing is, in bird photography especially, or when you're trying to take a human being or any character, living character, try to focus on the eye, all right? So in this case, we are trying to focus the eye of the penguin. Half press your shutter, don't until the focus is there. And then when you know the focus is good, then you take it. Now, this is a picture I took in Kerala, actually. In the backwaters of white egret sitting in front of a black cormorant. So this is a green water in the backwaters there in Kerala. So you can see the stunning color effects, the black, the white, and the eye is very, very clear in this photograph. So it makes it a nice photograph, okay? The next thing is trying to get good composition. It's not trying to get everything into your picture. Try to look at how to make a good composition. This is done by tip number 3, framing. Framing is where most creative juices come in. As a creative person or a crafter, you need to decide what you want people to see and if that will stimulate them or not. Of course, everyone has different opinions and different views. Let me just show you a picture I took in Kerala again. This is of a cobbler. He looks very fierce, as if he wants to scold me or something. But actually, when the framing, he's actually a very busy man. So if I give you the whole picture of what he was doing, he was actually repairing shoes. but the way he looked at it is if he wanted to attack me. So you see how I framed the picture tells the story in a different manner. Here are some pictures of the KL railway station. I framed it in different angles so that it gives you different dimensions of how to take pictures. Different angles give different kind of story. So when you frame something, you're actually framing a story. How are you going to set it up? The other thing on this is on checking your background. Tip number 4. It's very important to make sure you check what is going around the background when you take the photograph. Now here is a picture of a bird, eagle, a crested serpent eagle on a branch here in Sungai Long. But I love the blue color at the back. But unfortunately, the angle I'm taking makes with the the branches and the leaves, it's making it very complicated. So you cannot really see the picture of the bird. So I had to move. Another 10 meters away, I just moved away. The bird was still the same bird, same picture, same branch. It's not moved anywhere. It is just staying there. But now I changed against the university wall, which is red in color. You can see the crested serpent eagle now having a much more clearer vision. You can see the bird a lot better. So checking the background helps in making your picture a little bit more clearer, especially if you're trying to tell the story of how the bird looks like. The tip number 5, filling the frame. For a better composition and making the picture more interesting, take for example here is a picture of a boat and a whale, right? Now the sea. Normally, when we take a photograph, we would take the whole picture with the bird. We want to show the sea, we want to show the ship, we want to show the tail of the whale. But what professionals say, they say it's best not to show the whole picture. Sometimes just using the grids that we have seen, the yacht and the tail of the whale makes a lot more interesting. It's showing the picture. It's quite scary because the whale looks very close to the boat and it could probably tip the boat. So it becomes a very interesting picture, makes it scary, unlike what the other side where it looks pretty harmless and quite boring actually. Okay, so this is what happens when you do framing. Example of what I did of a bird, minor bird, sitting on the windowsill. If you can see the top picture, the frame is actually the bird is actually sitting on the window. But when I frame it up, it looks a lot more stronger. The bird looking up, and it looks as if very expressive. Actually, it's trying to build a nest on top of my roof. Another picture I'm trying to show you is Tanjung Tuan, whereas on top of a lighthouse, I was looking for eagles that were flying. Again, a very boring picture, just the sea and 2 boats there. But when I saw something after waiting for a while, I saw these egrets flying in a formation, a very unusual and rare sight. So that was the picture of the same sea, the same thing, but with some birds that fly into that space. The picture becomes an interesting picture for us to take and tell a story. So a unique formation of egrets on a flight path across the Straits of Malacca is a much better picture than the one I just now showed you. Okay, this 6th tip number 6 is about leading lines. So the expert Chris here is saying any line coming into your photo from the outside can serve to guide your picture through the photo. So you can see the bridge of a jetty going into the sea, right? It's a good example here of you. If you look at this picture, your eyes is just following the line all the way into the sea. So that is a leading line. This is what we mean by leading line. So I went and experimented this on the golf course here in Sungai Long. Again, I took a picture of all these lines on the grass, but it was a leading line, but it found it quite, I found this quite dull. So I waited for this golfer to come, and I saw that he was taking a picture. So this line, as if it was him dragging his golf clubs along this thing, it became a much more interesting picture. So this is what I mean by choosing to have a better leading line and some subject there to make it an interesting picture. Number 7, tip number 7, taking photographs anything but by eye level. I like this tip from Chris, not to take every single photo from just the normal line. Here you can see Alicia here. I remember my daughter Alicia taking this one of her cousin, and I thought she was crazy. But now that the professionals are saying this is how it should be done. So I found this photo to show you this point or tip. You actually should go right down. If you can see here, on a serious note, how low one needs to go to get a new and interesting perspective of a subject. So you can see this photographer is actually gone right to the ground, and she is taking the picture of this penguin. And you can see how the penguin seems taller in the first frame on the left. And on the other frame, the angle shows him from up. Okay, now she's taking the photograph from above. Again, you see the penguin, it looks like a regal, like a king, how he's walking like a king. So again, the angle that you take the photograph from, and whether how you're taking from down on the ground or whether you're taking from above, also has an impact of the kind of story that you are trying to tell. Next slide is talking about sometimes you need to get to the same level as your subject. Now, what does this mean? The Chris here is suggesting that we go down level of the, so here we have a picture of a cheetah. Now, cheetah is he's saying we go right down to the level of the cheetah and look, we have a much more intimate connection with the subject. So here we see this cheetah here, the key bit is that in that top third intersection corner. And you can see how important it is to capture the eye detail. This makes this photograph stunning. It's really a beautiful photograph. So I hope you understand what I mean by going down to the level of the creature. So in this case, the insect, we go right down to capture his eye, which is the most interesting aspect of the subject. Number 8, tip number 8 is looking for details. The fun in this craft or art is being able to spot little things that other people didn't even think about, let alone see, all right? So I got this picture of ants. There is a drop of water on a leaf and 12 ants are drinking water from it. The ability to capture tiny details like a water drop on a leaf and 12 ants coordinating to drink from it actually is amazing. How do they balance this leaf so that all 12 of them can share the water? God's amazing grace captured. So this is something that I would like all of you to take into account. This slide is showing again. Here, Chris took a photograph of his partner there. It's actually a very bad photograph. It's not in focus. Nothing is there. The eye is blurry. Technically, it's a terrible photograph. But what makes it an interesting picture is the eye. If you look into the picture of this eye, you can see the red rock of Uluru or the Ayers Rock in Australia in the eye pupil of the subject. Even though technically the photo is blurry and terrible, the detail in the eye gives it a unique perspective that makes you wonder what this picture is all about. So it's a very interesting picture, even though it's not technically a good photo. Tip number 9, and the second last tip, most of us take photographs in a horizontal plane, but sometimes we need to take vertical photographs. So like in this picture, the vertical photo looks a lot better on this giraffe. So that when you actually turn the camera vertically rather than horizontally, that means upside down, or along the vertical axis, you actually get a much better composition of your subject, especially like a tall figure like the giraffe. Okay. A final tip, actually break the rules sometimes. All right. There are those 10 rules. This is including the one which actually tells you to break the rules. Horizontal lines in summary, rule of thirds, framing. Number 4, check your background. Number 5, you don't have to fill the frame all the time. Try to fill the frame into the story that you're trying to say. Leading lines into the picture can make a meaningful composition. Anything but eye level, meaning, you can try to go down like the photographer and the penguin. Looking for details like that ant on the leaf. vertical shots like the shot on the giraffe. And finally, sometimes you just have to break the rules when it doesn't make it sense. I mean, it doesn't come into play correctly, but you have no choice because the picture is going to be a nice picture. Okay, so those are the 10 tips. Now I'm going to talk to you about something which a lot of people in photography or even don't realize the importance of is colors. Color theory is something very rarely spoken out in bird photography or even photography in general. But I feel it's important to understand this because it livens up an otherwise very monotonous bird pictures. So when I mix colors with other subjects like landscape, people and buildings, the subject becomes a lot more interesting, especially things that we see every day around in nature. So we take it for granted. Now, for me, color is a silent emotional language. So applying color harmonies, this is the part we usually don't learn from anybody. Color gives an expression of moods like red, hot desert, or a blue, cool morning. So here in this slide, I'm showing 3 color wheels. The first one is called the primary color. The second one is a secondary color wheel. And the third one is the tertiary color wheel. Now, the first one is in science, you all learned this. So I'm not going to explain it too much. Primary colors is your yellow, the red, and the blue. The secondary colors is when we mix, when we mix, say, for example, blue and yellow, we get green. And when you mix yellow and red, you get orange. When you mix blue and red, you get purple. That's called secondary colors. So likewise, when you mix one secondary color with another tertiary, a primary color, you get a tertiary color. So you get, this orange there, the purple, the magenta, the light blue, the light green, and that amber color on the left. So you get what is called tertiary ones. And the color wheel actually is there, and you can Google it up anytime. Trying to find out how to mix colors in your composition when you try to make pictures. Okay. Now this chart basically tells you the classification of colors. So those colors on the right hand side are considered to be cool colors like magenta, purple, blue, light blue, green. And then you get into the warmer colors, which is yellow, the amber, the orange, the red, those kind of colors are generally used to depict emotion of hot or warmer colors. Okay, so emotion plays a big part in your photography or creation when you're trying to tell a story. There are 3 color harmonies that I want to talk to you today about. And the first one is called monochromatic color harmony. What is that? Monochromatic color harmony is essentially one color, but in different variations. So for example, on the left, we see a dark orange and light orange picture. In the right-hand side, you see dark green, light green, or in blue and light blue. So basically, we see 2 monochromatic images, one taken in blue hour of the day towards the early morning, and one taken in the golden hour of the day. See how it swings your mood. But all monochromatic harmony pictures can be attractive to the eye, but it is quite boring if there's nothing happening. So we normally wait for the subject, like this car coming into this picture, or this little girl trying to capture the shadow that it makes on the wall, and that makes it a little bit more interesting. So we normally have to wait for the right, when you use that as a background for your subject, you have to wait for the subject's some motion to come in, some like car coming in or a child running into that picture. It makes it a little bit more interesting. I did the same here in Putrajaya, for example. I use monochromatic colors again, just one type of color, which is purplish green, but I waited a different time of the day. So you can see the picture on the left of the gray herons on the water, very serene and calm, 2 white storks standing in the water. And the other one on the right, suddenly the sun rays on the same patch of reeds that you see on the right, yeah, it bursts with energy as rays hit the water droplet. So it becomes a lot more energetic type of picture. The second kind of harmony is called analogous color harmony. These are using same colors, but are colors next to each other in the color wheel that we saw. Red, orange, yellow, light green versus warm colors, blue. Now here we see in picture subdued action of men going for afternoon prayers with one being wheeled. You see the red, the orange in the tertiary, red, orange in the background. This gives a richer monochromatic look when we use analogous color harmonies in our composition. I just want you to be aware. So here's another example of same place, the wetlands. I saw a purple heron. Again, I used those colors next to each other in the color harmony. A magenta, which is a tertiary color, purple, blue, light blue, and green. So we see a range of analogous colors, and we try to make a harmony of that. Okay, so that's the two types of harmony. Analogous. This is analogous. The first one is called monochromatic. The third type of harmony is on this slide. It's called complementary color harmony. Now, this color harmony is used to create an impact. So this picture is taken in the desert. You can see the sand, which is orangish brown, and the blue. They're totally opposite each other. So this is the complementary color wheel. Okay, so you can see the blue is directly opposite to the orange. The red is directly opposite to the green. The purple is directly opposite to the yellow. So this must set against each other. So yellow set against the purple, blue against the orange, red against the green, so that it creates a dramatic effect. It creates an impact. The other point is when you use the opposing color, do not use it in the same way. So here's a picture I took of a heron in the early morning. You can see the little red against the green there. But you see the portion of the red is very, very small. What I mean by same weightage, don't let the red be as strong as the green. Otherwise, there's no impact. And it's more clearer in the picture where the lady is walking. You can see the purple against the contrast or the blue on the wall of writing. That has a lot more impact on the image as compared to having the same kind of weightage. That harmony, it doesn't harmonize when you use this in complementary harmony. So the purple set against the orange wall makes the clothing shout out, and so the blue ink writing on the walls also makes it to shout out. So I took a picture of this is a bad picture of color harmony. But I like the lines on the roof made with this gray pigeon on top. But it failed in all the harmonies. So you know what I did? I actually just made a black and white picture so that I actually just captured the lines on the thing. So this is also creation, all right? So what I'm trying to show here is that, when you are not going to get a good harmony in a picture in colors, just make it black and white. If you're trying to show or create a harmony or creation, like the lines that you want to show in your image, just make it a black and white picture, okay? Now, some extra points of color harmonies. Here in slide 99, I'm showing you the use of colors in complementary harmony, meaning this is a monochromatic color harmony in the main, but we see blue used in smaller ratios. You see here the picture of a woman in blue against a background of a magenta brown wall, and the blue on the frame next to the door, blue bag, light blue on dress of the lady, slight blue on the far wall. This makes a picture pleasing to the eye, even though the blue shouts out. So I also do the same thing with a photograph of the pigeon and the blue. As you can see, it's repetitive. So the blue actually has a visual impact, making the clear sign against the two pigeons nestled on top of a light blue lamp frame. This just gives a restful impression on a busy, actually it is a very busy street below. The next slide is talking about the power of the color red. The color red is very, very strong. It is one of the most vibrant and overpowering colors in the color wheel. So, when you look at these pictures of the red wall, they just take over the whole picture, just like the Russian invasion. So, red usually should always be on the subject in small ratio, like on Alicia's jacket, on her backpack. You can see the red there. The reason for showing this picture is actually to show you how the red mixes up in the composition without being overpowering. So, when you use red, try to use it in such a manner that it is in smaller ratio. Or the other alternative, red can be behind the subject. But if, like this eagle with his eye shut, when I took the picture again, it's the same eagle that I showed earlier. He was just resting because the sun was in his eye. But I still felt the red was too strong. So I made it into a black and white story just to express the story. Here are some more examples of complementary colors in bird shots, and one bumblebee shot here as well against a red pillar. So in summary, there are three color harmonies. One is called, the first picture is called monochromatic harmony. The second one is analogous harmony, which is using colors next to each other on the color wheel. And the third one is complementary color harmony, which is opposing colors in the color wheel. So just to show you some pictures, the question that came up, what is my most memorable shots that I took in my life, especially since I'm a bird photographer. And this is the picture of what is called a storm stork. This was taken in Sabah, and it's a rare bird, and it's almost extinct. You won't see this bird very often. So when I actually saw it, I was very excited. And so one of the favorite locations I go for bird shooting is in Sabah, and this is the picture I took there. The other one is of this red-headed trongon. This is in Fraser Hill, another favorite place that I go to. And this is also a recommended place for a lot of bird photographers. And finally, this is another one, which is called a Wallace's eagle, again taken out in Sabah. So these are some of the rare birds that I have taken pictures of, and some tips I want to share with you on bird photography. Now, first of all, for photography, and especially when you go on trips, right? Plan your trip and your kit focus and try to focus on local flavors. So if you're going to a jungle, what are you expecting to see in the jungle? So sometimes if you're not sure, and if you want to just Google the images expected to see in that area, then you can decide what kind of camera you're going to need, whether zoom lens, macro lens, or normal lens. You need ultraviolet protective lenses. Do you need binoculars? Do you need lighting? Are you going in a cave? Do you need flashlight? You need to carry extra batteries and memory cards, otherwise the storage space might not be enough in your photos. Maybe you want to carry a PC, laptop, charger. Carry, in Malaysia especially, and India and places like that, carry raincoats, because suddenly the rain comes, and if you're carrying an expensive camera kit, you might spoil your kit. Then in Malaysia especially, a lot of mosquitoes when you go into jungly areas. So make sure you get mosquito repellents. Wear waterproof shoes, spare shoes, clothes, hats, and images. What do you expect to see? Are you going to look for birds on treetops, cliffs, under trees, bushes? Or my advice is always for birding, always go into places where it's open air. Are there arches where under a bridge that you can take, or colors that you can use? And don't forget to look for the little things. Look for light, look for cliff and sea, forests and caves. Find where the action is, rain, reflections. Find humor. Look what is funny. Look for what is funny. And then stick with your shot. Sometimes be patient. You have to wait for things to come into your picture. One advice I like to give is to get up early in the morning. The reason is the best colors comes either at dawn or at dusk in the evening as well, just before the sun goes down or just when the sun comes up. Don't try to take too many creative photographs on broad daylight, because it's too harsh, or when the cloud is too dark and you cannot get good reflection from light, then it doesn't become a good time to take photographs. So that is another tip. The other thing is, when you want to look at subjects, do we engage or do we just watch from far away? And as a bird watcher, there are tips for bird watching. And I tell you something, you have to be very patient. It's like fishing. You have to really be really keen. You have to be having good listening skills, ability to spot open air locations for light, as most photography, as I mentioned just now, takes up in the morning. You have to be strong if you want to carry zoom lenses, because you'll have to carry for hours. So you got to be pretty healthy and fit to walk around. Carrying binoculars, that is also not an easy thing, and you'll be sweating a lot, so carry a towel with you. And then finally is your attitude. You have to be humble. You have to be able to accept defeat in not seeing the bird you want to see, because it's not easy to capture. You only get two or 3 seconds to take a photo or a picture of a bird. Usually they'll fly off when you just get it on focus. So you've got to be prepared to not always capture what you want to capture. So with that, I have kind of finished my presentation. I hope I am open now. If you want to ask questions, I'm happy to take any questions if there's any. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Tom. We have got a lot of info and tips and a lot to digest and sink in. But this is enough to help us win some photography competitions.
I hope so.
So anybody got any questions? We have very little time. Otherwise, you can meet up with Uncle Tom anytime and ask him.
Yep.
So if this has aroused some interest in you, go and get a camera or borrow a camera and start taking photos. Don't just go to auto mode. Try all the manual settings and develop an eye for good shots. Even some handphone cameras have settings that you can play with. It's not like those times where you have to use film and every click costs money. This time is not a good shot, you just delete it. Yeah, I want to thank all the teachers who came up with this idea for this Easter project. Normally we have art and essay competition, but this time we are going into photography. Thank you, Auntie Bindu, for the opening prayer. Thank you, Auntie Amelia, for explaining the concept at the beginning. As I said, this is not a photography competition, but it's our project Hope. Hope is our team, but we added in creation later for those who cannot get ideas on Hope. Okay, this is more for the younger ones. But as far as possible, you get this, use the theme as Hope, because our Easter is telling about our hope. The hope that we have in Jesus Christ. So submit your works to your class teachers. Remember, the closing date is 12 April. Send by WhatsApp or email. You can also send by paper if you want. And the parents can help. Okay, we won't disqualify you if your parents help you. Your submission should tell the story of hope of creation. As far as possible, your photographs will tell the story. As far as possible, let your photos tell the whole story with minimum explanation. You can explain a bit of how you got the idea of what it means. Okay, and you can include more than one pictures. You can include other images as well. You can put in verses also if you know how to join, cut and paste and put it on the paper and snap. Or you can also, instead of printing it out, paste it straight onto Word or PowerPoint and send that. Okay, send that to your teachers. So teachers won't do any editing for you. You have to set it out on the paper that you want, and that is what we will display. Okay, we will show it in Sunday school display board, bulletin board in church. Hopefully by Easter we will have some photos up there. That's your final product will be there. So all those who submit, all those who participate will get prizes. We want to thank again Uncle Rajit for using his own Zoom account for this session. We want to thank God for all that God has gone through in the human form to give us our hope of eternal life. So the stories or the ideas of hope that you give help us to understand and appreciate the real hope that we have in this through God, through our Lord Jesus Christ. This is our vision of hope. We want to thank Sabo Achan for always being with us and for being with our programs and for Achan's guidance in all our Sunday school affairs. And for today's photography session, This is not only for you all. I'm sure some parents are also listening in, some of your uncles or aunties, maybe your neighbors are peeping through the window to see what's Uncle Tom teaching about photography, this free photography session. Okay, so please switch on all your cameras and unmute yourself, and we will give Uncle Tom this round of applause. Okay, let's chat.
Yeah, the class normally costs about $5,000. Okay.
Okay, so we won't send out any notes. We won't sell the notes or the prints or anything or the
That's
slides.
right.
You
So
want any more details, you have to go to Tom himself.
That's
Uncle
right.
Tom.
It would be nice to me. That's all.
Okay, before we close, before Achin close in the closing prayer, we want to thank all of you for participating, for attending today's combined session. It is nice to see so many people together. We seldom see during this shutdown. So as long as we are not able to meet physically, this is the only way we can have combined sessions. So just let's hope and pray that we are able to meet together in church for Sunday schools. So I pass this time to Achin.
Just wait. I think he just left.
Okay.
I think he must have clicked on the wrong button.
Yeah. Okay, it's coming in.
Sorry, getting disconnected frequently. I do not know what is happening. Yeah, no, after 5-10 minutes, I go out. I do not. Okay, thank you, Tom, and hope that you will lend your camera for a while for us to have.
Sure, no problem. I can lend my camera. Just be nice to me.
Yeah, I have sent you a photo of a video of someone who has gone to take photos without training. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is sent to you in WhatsApp. So
Okay.
you're
Let me
training,
have a look.
otherwise it may happen.
Okay. Okay, Achin.
Whatever it be, thank you. It is anyhow, it is somewhere we are all photographers. Now that's a period because we have got all the devices with us. We are in a new period and everything that touches our heart, so create excitement in us because it is showing the glory of God. It is God created everything. So we need to rejoice. We need to enjoy the situation and the serenity and the beauty of the nature and the love and kindness in people that has to be and that has to be recognized and that has to be enjoyed. That is for what God has created us. So thank you very much. It will be useful, and we can anyhow we will have so many pictures in our mobile which we have taken in our mobiles of various occasions that we want to keep in our memory. So definitely it is good, and in need, each and everyone is in need of that. So thank you very much. Thank you for arranging such a one, and it is nice that you have connected it to the season of Easter. So you can have some, that's a wonderful idea, that how can we promote and express our hope in this situation where there is no chance of any hope, but hope gives us scope. That is how we live. There is no scope, but hope gives us new vision. Hope is a new vision, looking at things differently. Seeing things as an obstruction is seen as a chance. That is hope. That is a vision. That is a perception. Yeah, for that God has to help us. That is what we have in Christ. Cross was something, failure, defeat, end, death. But that was the success, victory, crown, scope, love, and he has transformed it. So that's a hope. So let us have that hope, and let us have a meaningful and a very relevant Easter season. I hope that. Thank you very much. May God bless you. And can we conclude it with a word of prayer?
Yes, Sachin.
Okay. Let us thank God. Okay. Lord, our Heavenly Father, we thank you, we praise you, we glorify your holy name for all the blessings. Thank you for protecting us and blessing us this week. We have come to the end of this week. And thank you for this chance we have been given to come together as Sunday school and also to see the possibilities that you have placed in and around the situation in which they live. They help us to have a mind of excitement when we see things around us, to think of you, to think of beauty of the creation, to think of your greatness and think of your magnanimity. And God, help us to be mindful of your presence all around and live with that sense. And help us to be thankful, help us to be faithful. Bless Tom for all his activities and the encouragements he has imparted. And bless our Sunday school, especially our teachers. And bless our parents who are helping us to be part of this Sunday school mission and ministry. Bless our children with everything that are needed for them to grow as blessed children, as the infant, as Jesus in Nazareth, in grace and spirit. God, continue to bless us, bless us with an environment in which we come together, meet together and praise you. And thank you for this opportunity. Keep us blessed, keep us protected. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Grace of our Lord Jesus